Integral Greg Hoffman begins his odyssey at Nike as a wide-eyed intern in 1992, thrust into an arena of possibilities. At that time Nike was already on its way to being a giant, but the culture was not rigid. Young creatives, dreamers, people who asked, what if, were not just tolerated, they were essential. Hoffman's beginning is not just about climbing the ranks, but about learning that creativity does not come from the hierarchy, but from people who observe, question, and imagine beyond what's visible. He learns early that emotional connection is not a marketing afterthought, it's fundamental. As he grows within Nike, the next realization is that creativity must be collective. He describes, creativity is a team sport, not as a slogan but as a practice. Ideas come from many voices, some loud, others quiet. Hoffman shows how campaigns become richer when you embrace this mix. There's a risk in putting out bold ideas, risking failure, facing pushback, but without that risk, there's no innovation. One must build environments where people feel safe to propose the wild, the unusual, the frightening. Hoffman recounts specific turning points, Olympic campaigns, working with icons like LeBron and Ronaldo, the preparation for global tournaments. These aren't just success stories, they are crucibles of tension, compromise, iteration. One campaign gets delayed, another idea dies in committee, yet each failure shapes what comes next. The lesson: resilience in creative work is as important as the spark of inspiration. Emotional bonds with audiences, not just through perfect execution, but through authentic struggle, can be more powerful. He explores what it means to dare to be remembered. Too many brands chase cool, seeking instant trendiness or superficial appeal. Hoffman argues that being memorable means leaning into what feels true, even if it's uncomfortable or polarizing. He shows that Nike's most remembered moments weren't always the safest choices, but those that stitched emotional truth into sport, possibility, identity. The lesson for anyone wanting to build a brand or tell a story: courage matters. Choose what lifts people up, what gives them a sense of purpose, rather than what mimics what's already been done. Another thread in the narrative is about insight and empathy. Hoffman insists on deeply knowing the people you want to connect with, not just demographics, but their dreams, fears, what they carry inside. He shares how some of Nike's work that resonated hardest came from listening, imagining what someone felt, what they saw in themselves. Empathy becomes a tool to see what others don't yet see. For you, this means, don't guess your audience's motives, try to live in their shoes, feel what they feel, see what they see, even what they don't yet realize they see. One of the more powerful lessons Hoffman weaves in is, spark a movement. Campaigns need not just to sell but to change. Nike's most memorable work takes a single idea and extends it beyond the product into culture, into belief. He shows how messages around equality, risk, identity, greatness become entry points for communities to rally, to feel part of something larger. A movement doesn't happen by accident, it requires intention, consistency, belief in something bigger than profit or position. If you are building a narrative, aim for movement. What shared value or ideal can people connect with, not just admire? Hoffman frequently points to the importance of legacy. Not leaving memories alone but leaving legacies that endure. He frames legacy as more than campaigns, it's the way people inside the organization treat each other, the way creativity is embedded, the values held across time. He urges creative leaders to ask, what seeds am I planting that will grow long after I'm gone? For your own context, that means designing not just for short-term wins but for culture, for teams, processes, values. He also warns against chasing cool in isolation from identity. What feels cutting-edge or fashionable may trick you into being derivative. Hoffman shows that many of Nike's success moments came from owning its identity, sport, movement, power, inclusivity, rather than copying what others deemed current. The authenticity of tone, voice, design, and message becomes the core of emotional connection. So when you plan communication or branding, align it deeply with what you believe, who you are, and why it matters. Hoffman talks about game face for greatness, which is about preparation, consistency, readiness. Great stories or campaigns don't start at launch, they build through small practices, repeated attention, incremental refinement. He draws parallel to athletes who train daily, who polish details others ignore. For you, this suggests that the excellence of the end product often depends on readiness, on the unseen work, the small iterative improvements, the alignment of every part toward the central emotional purpose. Throughout the narrative there is tension, between risk and stability, between safe decisions and memorable ones, between individual brilliance and collective voice. Hoffman doesn't flinch from showing the messiness. Sometimes risk leads to failure. Sometimes a campaign with huge expectations falls flat. What matters is what you learn, how you adapt, how you stay tethered to your core emotional mission. The audience senses authenticity, they sense doubt, struggle, breakthrough. That texture makes emotional stories stick. He also observes that creative culture needs attention. It thrives when leaders protect those daydreamers, nurture diversity in thought, background, experience. Not just in who people are, but how they think. He argues that quiet voices are sometimes the source of insight others would dismiss. Something about their being less performative gives space for deeper seeing. So build processes, team structures, rituals that allow those voices to emerge, listening sessions, cross-disciplinary work, safe critiques. By the end, Hoffman pushes you to ask what you want your work to mean. Not just in market share or likes, but in emotional impact. Who did you move? Whose life did you touch? What did you help people believe they could be? That kind of purpose shifts behavior. It changes how you measure success. And when success is measured in emotion, in connection, in legacy, then even setbacks have value, they are building blocks of memory. One actionable insight, in any creative or branding project, start by defining the emotional terrain first. What feeling do you want to evoke? What belief do you want to reinforce? Not features, not metrics, but emotional experiences. Let that guide messaging, visuals, tone, even organizational decisions. Another, build rituals inside your team. For example, time for daydreaming or storytelling unconnected to immediate deliverables. Unplanned walks, workshops, creative brainstorms with no agenda. These create space for ideas that otherwise never have room. Finally, test for emotional resonance. Before you commit fully to campaigns, try to surface how people feel, via interviews, sketches, early storyboards, feedback loops. Not just, do you like this, but how does this make you feel about yourself, your aspirations, your belonging? If it doesn't move, it may not matter.